I just given you here two technical topics are there. So one is change detection. Another option is you will understand about a concept called content projection. These two are technically asked in interviews. So what is change detection and what is content projection? Change detection detail you will understand. Initializing the values and configuring the values that are to be rendered. So we generally consider that under the process of change detection. Initializing of values happens in change detection. Values are assigned in change detection. And the process of accessing any template content dynamically and rendering into specific location of your component. Accessing a dynamic template and rendering it into any specific location in the component, that process is called as content projection. Actually, content projection is accessing any template content dynamically template content dynamically and rendering into specific location of your component is known as content projection. Actually the then block view child is doing this content projection. We are creating a template dynamically and we are rendering the template dynamically into the location. That's what actually content projection. So let's see. Yesterday I showed you, told you about that one simple example. Let's create one simple example. So here we are creating a simple component first. Let's create one component to see that example. Our components folder, add open internal. So I'm creating a component here, ng generate component and if then demo. Skip test. Okay, I'm creating a component if then demo. Yeah, once the component is generated, so let's keep that in the startup. If then demo, that is in the startup. I'm running that also, and in the index I keep the selector if then demo. Okay, so this is the basic option ready. Okay, let's go to and design one simple page, create one simple one. So I'm creating here the UI for this. Yeah, let's add the UI. So that means how we can add external then template. So I'm adding a div class container fluid. Okay. And here we added a heading product details. Fine. And I'm creating a simple div and put the class as card. Okay. In this, we have card header, div class as card header. And here we will just put a button. And in this button, so we are using option details or preview. Two options are given in the same button. So class BTN and so BTN, so primary like this. Okay. And the BTN block. Fine. So this is the button in the header and the div. We have class body, card body. Now in the body, we have two contents to display actually. In the body, we have two contents to display. So let's run this and see. So that means if the condition true, it will display, and false, another, or then block, multiple then blocks we want actually. So localhost, yeah. So this is the initial design, product details. So what I want here is, I click on details, the details must be rendered. And again, I click on that, preview should be rendered. That means I need to switch the screen between details and preview. That means two different templates must come here. And I need to display multiple templates on the same area. In the same location, I want to display them. So how we can manage multiple? So for example, here in the body, we are adding a div, right? And the div will have a condition, ngIf. That condition we will mention. Under that, we have two templates, ng template, and one template is having an ID, so details is the ID. In the details, so we are displaying, so the details in a tabular form. So we will put a table, so class as table and the table hover, so table hover, okay. And just we have a row and name, some details, so table, and say some Nike casuals. And we have another row, and in that we have some price and some price, okay, some price. And we have some another row, some code, so some code, so some code, something roughly I defined for that. So this is one template which contains the details of that particular product, details of the product. So that ID is details. Currently in the output, so you cannot see anything because it is designed in a dynamic template that will be rendered only when asked. So when we ask for rendering, it will render it. So by default, it is not available. Actually, in the design, you can see in the details here. So in the body section, in the debugger, you can observe in the div, and this is the card header and card body. In the card body, content is not there. So whatever the content that you designed, so in the card body, it is not available. That means it will be dynamically generated. it will be dynamically generated. Ng template is that. Suppose I given any div or span, it will be added even when we not required, we need a condition for that. This template can be dynamically added into the UI. The concept of accessing any template dynamically and rendering into your page, into your component at specific location, this process is called as content projection. At very experienced level also, this question is regularly asked in interviews. What is content projection? Content projection is the technique of accessing a template dynamically and rendering into the component. Okay, I will add another template, ng template. So this template will have preview. So it is having the ID preview hash. This is details. And here I am adding an image source is equal to, so some assets, so some shoe.jpg and the width, some width and height, some height. So that is an image configured. So we have some images. So in assets, I have some images, some shoe.jpg. I'm using it here. Okay. So this is preview template. But in the UI, so those two templates will never be there here. So we don't have those two templates here. In the body, we don't have those templates here. We need to decide which template to render dynamically. There are multiple templates to render. We need to decide which one to render. In that case, so what we have to do is, so we need to write a condition for displaying them. And we want them to be rendered on button click. So that means when user clicks the button, it should display details. And if details is being displayed, then it should display preview. If preview is being displayed, it should display details. So we want to switch between that. We want to switch between. In this case, what we have to do is, in order to dynamically generate any template. So if you want to dynamically generate any template, two templates are there. Remember these IDs here, details and preview templates. And for them, we need to create a view child. So let's go to the TS file. In the TS file, we need a component and we need on init. On init is for change detection. On init is an event which is for change detection. So the view child can render the content only on change detection. Yesterday I showed you. And for that we need change detection on init. We need a template reference, and we need a view child. These are the options required. So first we will create one simple property, is visible equal to true. Is visible equal to true. That means this is visible equal to true is passed into the condition here. If is true, is visible. That means if true, then which block to come. So then if it is true, then a then block should come. If it is true, then block should come. Then block should come. So but there are two then blocks, one details block, another one preview block. So which block to come? We have to design a then block that can change its template dynamically. So we have to create a then block that can change the template dynamically. That means what we have to do now, we have to create a then block. This then block should be of type template reference. It is of template reference, any type of template. It's a generic one, any type of template, or it can return null. Initially it returns null. Initially it returns null. And it should return the templates. This then block is used here. That means we will use here. So then we will configure that then, and it should use the then block. Then block is currently null. It is currently null. So when user clicks the button, initially you can put one. So for that we need to create two template references. So you have then block and currently it is null. Two template blocks we have to design. One template block for preview, another template block for details. So we need to create two templates. One is details template. It is of type template reference. It is of template reference any and null. And initially it is null. Similarly, we need to design another is preview, and this preview also template reference any, or it is null. By default it is having null. Now these two details and preview template, they must be rendered on change detection. Then we have to give them to view child. @view child is a directive which is responsible for picking up this template. So when it will pick the template, when the selector is details, it is the selector name. So, and change detection occurred. Change detection means static. Static is equal to true. That means if change detection happened, that means the value is found, and this template, details template, will be rendered in the UI. It will find whether the same name details template is available or not. If it is available, it will render in the UI. Similarly, the preview template also need to be configured as with the view child. So this selector is preview, and the static is true, So by default, so now what should happen is on change detection, that means ng on init, this dot then block is equal to this dot preview block. That means by default I am giving the then block as preview block. That means you can see that by default the preview block is coming. That means in the container you have the preview block. Preview block means the image is there, and you can see here the preview block is by default displayed in the card body. Image is displayed here. The preview block is defined here. Now what we need to do here is on button click, I need to change the then block. I need to render another template. Then on button click, I need to change this preview to details and details to preview and apply to this then block. Then I will write a method called toggle. And this toggle method will use this dot then block. It changes, so depending on the condition is nothing but, so this dot then block is equal to, if this dot then block is equal to this dot preview. If it is equal to preview, then what should happen? If it is equal to preview, so then it should apply this dot details. Otherwise, it should apply this dot preview. It is a simple, this is a simple ternary operator. We are applying this dot details. We are assigning this dot details to then block. If already it is preview. If it is not preview, if it is details, then it will apply preview. That means we are changing between the view on toggle. On toggle, two different then blocks are there. One block is preview, another block is details, and those two blocks need to be changed. In that case, this toggle should fire up when user clicks the button. That means here in the button click event, we have to access the toggle. So now initially by default, it will display the preview. You can see here the preview related content is there. So this is image. Image is present inside the card body. And I click on details button, then it should change to that table. In the card body, it will get the details of it. So it will just get that card body. So I'm just clicking on details and preview, then it has to get that and display. That means I click and it should get the toggle. So from details to preview, and again click on that and preview to details. It should flip between the data and display. And it will add only the preview block into the UI dynamically, image. And when I click again, it will add only the table into the domain. So at particular location. That means we have multiple then blocks. And we are displaying only the block that is required for that situation. So this is having two concepts at one step. Here you are understanding the example with a concept called content projection and change detection. As I already told you, change detection you will learn in component cycle. As of now, I will tell you, change detection is the process of assigning value into the memory. That means into a property. That means into the property. Here you can see into this then block, assigning a template. On initialization, change detection happens. So this then block is assigned with a template on change detection. That is change detection. But who is going to pick up the template and render in your UI? That is done by view child. A view child is responsible for accessing that preview template. And rendering in the UI at the preview location. Preview location means this is. That means it is picking up at the template and rendering that here. So that means it is selecting that template and displaying the template. So view child is picking up the template and rendering the template. So it is going to change, it is going to render that and it is going to change it. So when user clicks, it will change to details, it will change to preview. The process of picking up your template and rendering in the UI at specific location, that is content projection. That means on init is doing change detection and view child is handling content projection. These two are very complex and very important topics in interviews: change detection and content projection. So change detection, ng on init, and content projection, so that is by using view child. That's how it happens. So this is Yesterday already I showed you a general structural example. Today we just implemented one simple on example on this. So, but if there are several blocks, and you want to render any specific block, so because lot of will be there. For example, you are filling a registration form. In that 5-6 categories of register options are present. Personal details, some other details like. So then we need several steps to follow. And we don't want to show everything on one screen. Step by step, user will choose between them. Then if there are multiple blocks, then we cannot expect for change detection and content projection. We will not use if and then blocks if there are several conditions. Why? Because for every rendering, you need a view child, and you need a then block to render the template. We need to create a template and we need to render the template. This will be very complex if there are many conditions, because it will delay actually. Why? Because it has to create a template dynamically, render the template into the UI. So to avoid this, if there are multiple conditions, then instead of using if with then blocks, you can use ng switch directive. ng switch directive. It is same like how you use the switch statement in your UI, but generally switch statement contains a switch expression. It will contain the case and on case what statement to execute, and we have break. What is advantage of this is it will directly execute only the case that is needed and it will use it. If there are many conditions, then it should better to take with a switch. Many blocks, then better to go with a switch. It can display and render only the container that is required for that specific situation out of all the containers. So that means it selects only the container to display out of a set of containers. So actually it will not render all other containers that are not necessary, that are not required. It is same like if. It is like same like if adding and removing, but it can choose easily any specific out of several. So for that actually generally you use switch in your programming, same like that. So here switch is defined by using ng switch, and the case is defined by using ng switch case, and the default is defined, by using ng switch default. Here you don't have any jump statements, break statements not required, because it is not a continuous flow. It is just rendering only the template. After rendering, it will stop. So that's the reason you don't need any break statements or jump statements here. We can configure everything by using this ng switch case and switch default. Switch case, it specifies the block to execute when switch is matching, and the default, it will execute when switch is not matching. Usually, so when you are writing the switch, when you are configuring the switch is defined with a main container. We will have a main container. In the main container, so we define the switch, ng switch, and a switch can use a value or it can use an expression. Now inside the main container, we will have child containers. Now we have child containers. We will have so many child containers. So this is child container 1, 2, like this. So inside the main container, we keep all these child containers. Now this child container will be used as case. That means we use ng switch case. So if it is 1, it is 1. Then the first one will execute. That means if switch value is 1, then the first one will execute. If the switch value is 2, ng switch case, if it is 2, the second one will execute. So it depends on. So if you are not matching, if it is not matching it 1 and 2, then it will use ng switch default. It will use ng switch default. This will execute so when any one of those are not matching. So if the value is 1, then it will render the first block. If the value is 2, it will render the second block. It is straightforward. So we don't need any ng if, then blocks, else blocks. If it is matching, it will just render that particular one. So this is more easy for rendering the content and displaying the content. So let's see one simple example how we can configure this, how you can define the switch. So if there are multiple blocks, better go with this switch. So I will add another component here and ng generate component switch demo. Okay, fine. I'm creating a component called switch demo. Okay, so it is added. Now let's change this to switch demo. Yeah, I will keep that in the startup. Switch demo. Yeah, and here let's change it to switch demo. Fine. So currently switch demo is working fine. Okay. Now here in this switch demo, let's go to the component. Switch demo component. So yeah, in the switch demo component TS file, just we are adding. We don't need all this change detection, all these not required now. So what we need to do here, so just we need to create an object product. The product object is having some details, some Nike casuals. Okay. And it is having some price. Okay. And it is having some in stock. In stock is true. Okay. And it is having some photo. It is assets some shoe.jpg. And while giving the names and all, be careful because it is case sensitive in folder names, file names also. Pictures, file names, it is case sensitive, capitalization matters. So description, so something about, so Nike casuals, some features or details about we kept in the description actually. Okay, now here we are creating, so we are creating this content. Okay, first we need several options to define. That means let's go to the design in the HTML page. So we are creating, so a div, so class container fluid, yeah, and I'm just creating temporarily a div, and here we will keep the class as btn group, some button group. In that we are adding the button. So I'm just giving a button. This is details button, and another button. This is a preview button, and another button. So that is description. So product details, product preview, and description. 3 buttons are there. So these are the buttons, and I just kept in a button group, and usually let's keep this button group in a button toolbar, BTN toolbar. You can create a navigation bar, BG danger. Okay, class is equal to BTN and BTN danger. Okay, so BTN and BTN danger. Fine. So just I designed like a button and button danger. Okay, just a button group I created in this way. So we have details, we have preview, we have description. You can use a navigation bar like tab, controls and all. So I just created this. Now when user clicks on details, preview, description, that concerned content should come. So that is what we designed earlier also, but so earlier we have to create a template and render the template dynamically. We have to create and render the template dynamically. Now we are just configuring this. We are just configuring this by using these options. So technically, the appearance I just given like this, you can add anywhere. Why? Because people have a habit of designing like a nav bar. So we can configure in a nav bar. In the nav bar, you can have nav items. So tab like appearances, anything, design your wish, you can do that. So below this button toolbar, so below the button toolbar, I am creating a div. So here I need to display the content. Below the buttons, I need to display the content here. Now this content have to choose any, it has several containers inside it. It has several containers inside it. We need to configure the containers. Technically, so the containers, so what are the containers defined here? So inside this div, so here it uses a switch. It uses a switch. I'm using ng switch here, ng switch here. And you can see that ng switch is not available as an attribute here. ng switch is not available as an attribute. It is available as a property. That means Angular provides ng switch as a property which you can use for any HTML element also. Technically, HTML element is not having a property called ng switch, but ng switch is available as a property. ng switch is available as a property. You can use this as a property. But this property will be translated into, so this HTML attribute. It will use as HTML attribute. If you remembered, I told you that ATTR is used, but in the latest versions, several options are provided by Angular, which are HTML related, and they can translate them into attributes. For example, suppose I'm using a table. Earlier I showed you table don't have a width property. Table is not having any, sorry, height property, is not having a height property. We have to use ATTR dot height, and we need to define the height. Similarly, for example, I am using table cell. I want to merge it. I don't have call span. Call span is not there. We have to write ATTR dot call span. But what they have done in latest versions is some regularly used properties. Angular has provided HTML properties, which it will translate automatically into attributes. That means, observe, this call span is directly not available, ATTR, but observe yes uppercase, it is available. That means they provided this new attribute property in Angular, which can translate itself into call span of HTML and provide it. So such concept is good, but unfortunately it is not there for everything. So few regularly used HTML attributes are provided by Angular. So as properties, which you can use them as properties. So that is the reason. So switch is not as a property actually of div, but Angular latest versions provide this as a property. You can bind as a property. In early versions, we have to write like, in early versions, we usually have to write like just attribute only. But now you can write as a property. Ng switch is a property. Okay. So this will decide which one to display, which into the switch we will pass a value. Into the switch we are going to pass the value. Okay, it is passed. It will be passed into the switch. A dynamic value. Under that, we have to design some cases. You see in the switch, I am designing a div. So this div is a class. So this is a card. This card is using ng switch case, and this is details. That means ng switch case. It has to get details. It is a string. Details is a string. Word case, it is a string. Then string must be enclosed in quotes. That means you are saying that if the switch is matching with details, so then it will display this block. So that is one option we have designed. I will create another block, and here this is another card. This card will be rendered if ng switch case, if case is matching with the it is matching with another one. If it is matching with preview, so preview. This is preview block, and another div will be there. So this is using another case. This is also a card, and this is another case, ng switch case. And here in the case, I am defining another is a description. We have 3 blocks. Which block to render? This ng switch will decide. Which block to render. It will decide which one to render. So initially, suppose here I am, so this is, you can see, here you can put some content, whatever the content you want, you can put the content. So first I will put the content here. So in this, I am just defining a div and a class as a card header. So in the card we are designing, and here I want to put a heading. So in the heading, I want to just print the product name. So product dot name, we can access that and display. Dynamic value. And in the div, so we have the class that is card body. In that we want to display the product price. So that means here we have product price. So product dot price, we are displaying name and price. And in the card footer, so div, so class as a card footer. So in that we want to just display the status. Is it available or not? So we want to just display the status. Stock available or not, we want to display the status. Then if product dot in stock is equal to true, then we will put the word available. Otherwise we put out of stock. That's it. That is the option I need to display at the bottom. This is one card. So this is one case, that is details. In another case, this is preview. Here we will put image. So image source will come from product dot photo. Okay. So width is 200 and height is 200. So in the second case, we have only photo. In the third case, we want to display only summary. So that means in the third place, so here we have to just display. So a div, and inside the div, so we have class as a card body. In the card body, we put a paragraph. Here we want just only the product description, product dot description. We want just description. Here image also, I will display in card body, div class as card body. And here we are displaying it. Okay. Now currently you have so many containers. So one details container, one preview container, another description container. And you can see that currently it is not showing any of those containers. And observe carefully here when I inspect here. And in the elements in the body section, you can see, so in the div, so all the containers are empty. No container is rendered. That means your page is lightweight. It is not having all that you have designed. It will bring only the container that is necessary. It depends on switch now. So for example, you see here, the switch, ng switch is now passed as details. That means we are passing some string details. That means switch is matching with the first block. Then it has to get the first block and display. It should get the first block and display. Suppose this is matching with the second block, that means preview. Then it should get the second block and display. Then it should get the second block and display. And it is going to get the second block and display. That means it will get the preview and display. That means here we need to send a dynamic value based on button click. Which button they clicked, that value we need to send here. We need to send here. This is a challenging point here because, so for example, there are 3 buttons. For 3 buttons, so we need to send the details. That means here, I will go here and we'll write here selected view. Selected view is by default, it is details. That means selected view I am giving as details. Details. Selected view is details. Details. So that means I will apply this. I will apply this here to the switch. ng switch is accessing selected view. That means the word details. So that means by default it will show the details in the preview. You can see details is coming. Now this selected view should be changed according to the button click. According to the button click. That means I will write a function here. I will write a function here. So that is choose view. Choose view is a function. This function should be executed for every button. This should be executed for every button. All buttons will use the same. That means this button click will use choose view. Choose view. And this button, so click will use choose view. Now this button also click will use choose view. That means if all buttons are using the same function, how the function knows which button they have clicked? I hope you know JavaScript good. If you know JavaScript, already you know JavaScript event arguments. JavaScript have 2 event arguments. I think you know them. This and event. Am I right? JavaScript events have 2 arguments. Am I right? 2 event arguments. I think everyone knows them. This and event. What is the purpose of this? That means JavaScript events, suppose you have a button on click is equal to, so some choose view, that is the function, this and event, 2 arguments will be there. I hope everybody knows that in JavaScript. What is the purpose of this? This is an object that sends information about the current element. Understood? This is an object that sends information about the current element. Current element means button. Button related details are sent by using this, and event related properties are sent by using event. That means on click related properties are sent by using event. That is a general JavaScript event handling. So, but in Angular, so you cannot use this keyword. So you cannot use this because it is already a reserved word in TypeScript. We can use only $event. $event is one event argument. You cannot even use the word event. You have to use $event. $event is used to send both details, current object related details and current event related details. Both it is sending to this function $event. So my first button will have a name called details. My second button will have a name called preview. And my third button will have a name called description. The names of these buttons are same as the names as my views, whatever the views I am having. Now when user clicks these buttons, this function will fire up, and that function gets an event object which can collect the name of the button. That means this choose view is expecting an event object. This event object can collect the object related properties. How it can collect the object related properties? This dot selected view is equal to that selected view will be used, the button name will be used as button name. That means E is an event object. That event object have a property called target dot name. This is used to get the name of the button. Actually in JavaScript we have two objects, this and event, but here only one is there, event. That event can access object related properties by using target. That means event is having object related properties under this target, and the object is button name is now accessed here. That means if user clicks details button, the details name is attached to the selected view, and user clicks preview button, preview name is attached to the selected view. So selected view changes, that view is applied to this. So you can use any property, you can use ID, you can use class, you can use name, any attribute of element can be accessed here, am I right? So you can access any element related one. That is general JavaScript event driven approach. Now you see now here, I click on here preview, the preview will come, description will come, and details will come. I can switch between them. This time I am not using any template references. We are not using any view childs. We are directly rendering only the content that is required. And you can see that in the containers, you can see here. So in the container, you can see the details container is displayed here. Currently the details container is displayed here. And when I click on preview, the details container is removed and only the preview container will come. In that only the image will be displayed here. And I click on description, that only description container will come here, and description container will display only the description. Others are removed from the page. So if there are multiple conditions to handle, multiple blocks to render, then we can display only the block that we need from out of them, all of them. So the presentation, how you want, you can design in a tab way, in a navigation bar way, it's your wish. Now the key point is, so dynamically we can select a particular view and render that view. So that means it will reduce the burden in selecting and rendering the views. This is very complex if you are doing it then blocks by using view childs. So if there are many blocks and out of that only one to be executed, just you can use this switch. So switch is defined with ng switch and the cases are defined with switch case. So switch case, they just are used for selecting and rendering the specified content in that particular location. So that is how we can manage the multiple blocks in the UI level, how you can configure multiple blocks in the UI level. That is technically handling the situation wise contents and projecting them into the components, right? So this is two important directives we have, ng if and ng switch. These are the two structural directives. Another structural directive we are having is ng for. So the purpose of this structural directive, how to use them and how do we work with this, that we will see in our next session, right? Tomorrow we will see that. And these we will see in further all examples. In several examples, everywhere we will use ng if, ng switch. We are gradually implementing them in all our examples, right? Tomorrow we will see another structural directive, how we can use ng for, which is also very important, how to deal with ng for and handle it, right? Tomorrow we'll continue.